Yes. I'm really loving that intro. This is Mirror Work Conversations with Lady O. Thank you for joining us. This is going to be a combination of me speaking live to you and also a pre recording that I did on my Instagram page a couple days ago. And something said, you know what? Make it a podcast. Record it. Some mother, some woman might just be inspired in hearing it. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to make it a podcast. And just to lay the groundwork or the backstory, I should say, on it, I had an appointment on Friday, a family court appointment that I am named in, so I have to respond. As I said, you'll hear me say in the Instagram live, I don't go looking for fights. However, when my name is called, I have to respond. So it's been an ongoing, continuous attack from my ex-husband, finding ways, always finding a way to be relevant. And because my mirror work coaching is for mothers and women that are coming out of narcissistic relationships, toxic environments, traumatic experiences, and you are looking to leave the shame and blame behind, I share my story very openly, and it's easy for me to do that because I've always been doing that. That's part of my therapy, is to speak my life, to be my own cheerleader. Many times I had to be my own cheerleader. I did not have support. The church was not a support. If anything, they were encouraging the narcissistic behavior as a result of covering their image, because of one of their members being part of the drama. And her family is highly connected in the Seventh-day Adventist circle, and from the Jamaica side to the Toronto side, and you know, all these connections that I find always overlap, either country or religion. People more loyal to that than the principles. And they try to hide and say it's for principles, and they try to find a passage in the Bible to support it. But no, it's because you're Jamaican and you're standing up for your Jamaican counterparts, so they call it your yaddies, or because you're Christian and you're thinking that you're saving the church image. And God, Most High don't need you to protect his image. The Most High wants you to be standing on principles. And if you stand on principles, then just by osmosis, you protect the image because you're standing on principles. But when you have both of them together, when you have the country and the religion, and the defense is to protect both, principles go way out the window. It goes out the window. So the church was not a support. Family was not a support, because they were intertwined. And any relationship I had at work, I was ostracized as a result of the narcissism. That was able to find my superiors that had character deficiencies that my narcissist ex-husband, now but husband at that time, knew that I had issues with. So they say the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So it's very easy in corporate world and any piece of business to find leadership of character deficiencies. It's very easy to find now. Before, it was very hard because leaders had character. Now we have been rewarding character deficiencies and giving them promotions because management want people with low character, because it's easy for you to manage someone that has no character. It's easy for them to be a footstool. It's easy for them to be a foot soldier. It's easy for them to comply and say yes, because you know that they have no scruples. They have no moral compass. The dollar sign or the title is their go-to, and they'll do anything for that. So now corporate America and leadership in general has more of character deficiencies than integral leadership. And that's the nature of the beast that we're in right now. So not having support in what those are the areas that they will say, okay, do you have support in? And I say they, if you go through any mental health specialist, because I was also diagnosed with anxiety and depression clinically. It wasn't me saying it, it was clinical. And again, the non-support from my husband, he would make smart remarks about it. He would make statements against my mental health. He wouldn't take it seriously. And then he also started using that as a weapon at my place of employment. I had trainees that would be coming out of his training class. When they get to know me, they're like, oh, you are the oh, we heard about you. He said that you're crazy. He says that you're losing your mind. And the working environment did not protect me. Occupational health or human resources, I would say workplace harassment, workplace violence, when domestic abuse is on the workplace and it spills over into your personal life. I didn't get protected. They protected him more because one, he's man, and two, there were character deficiencies that was higher up. So he was their boy and I was the shit disturber. So I was the one that was being warned not to speak, warned. And when he did violate those and he did come to my home and injured me while he's on the job, he came to my home while on the job and using the company vehicle and caused injury that was reported to the company and to the police and also to my the doctor, because I had to get had to be seen. They covered it up. Higher up found it and they found a way to cover it up. I had to write a letter when I realized how disgusting it was. I had to write a letter to the now late Rob Ford. He was the mayor at that time. And I wrote to his office because our company is under the city umbrella. And yes, we worked together. So that's another dynamic. If your abuser is on the job with you, and then you have people who are more loyal to friendship and to appearance, and they don't want you to make their friend or their colleague look bad. So you are seen again as a shit disturber. You just need to just suck it up, be quiet. And so that's why I have respect for Rob Ford. It's not until I wrote a letter to his office got it because I registered it to his office and to my management and to other higher ups, and they never acknowledged it. They all were registered, but his office did. And I got response back from his office that they're taking it seriously. They're going to look into the matter. And then all of a sudden I got a call from my place of employment. First I got a letter saying that they're calling as a result of my letter to the mayor's office. So they weren't communicating to me because of the nature of what's being happening on the workplace that's being toxic. And that probably obviously pissed them off because now I went to the mayor and now Rob Ford has something. And so they didn't like that. And from then it's just downhill, no support. So no support on the job, and I'm supposed to have, because of workplace harassment, workplace violence, workplace domestic abuse support. That is part of the Ontario Human Rights and the occupational hazard and all of these occupational bylaws and bills that they have to protect you. All of them failed me. And as I said, the external support failed me. Then I was told by colleagues that they got communication from management for nobody to speak to me, for nobody to have contact with me. It was disgusting. And she was the only one that was brave enough to say that they don't tell her who her friends are and who she can and cannot speak with. Later on, she was fired. They found a way to get rid of her. But it's very toxic. So when I tell women and mothers, I know, and that's just a tip of the iceberg of my journey through this. So when I coach women, I said, I know, and I share, they're like, okay, you get it. So when I give advice and I give my feedback, they know it's coming from a place of I walked that path and I'm walking that path because I have to co-parent with the narcissist. So with all the attempts of trying to destroy me for daring to have a voice, because narcissist does not want you to have a voice, and when you dare to speak back or stand up, it's just like, what, who do you think you are? The agenda is to destroy me, destroy my ability to provide for myself, because again, it wants you to be dependent, and when it sees that you're independent, it goes after that independence. So my career that it knows I worked very hard for, because we met on the job, so I didn't get it through him, and he saw my work ethic, he knows how much it meant to me, he attacked that. And it was very easy, as I said, for him to find my superiors that had character deficiencies. And they already showed me they had character deficiencies, and I was a threat to them because they've been wanting me to change my reports. They're wanting me to frame somebody and say that someone was something, and I'm like, no, not on my shift, it wasn't. And they were upset that I wasn't going along with their agenda of how they're managing in that area, which is to manage through intimidation, through framing people, through harassing people, and that's not the kind of manager I am, period. So when I joined their team and they tried to make it this kumbaya, oh, we're all black, and when they realized I don't identify as black, they're like, uh-oh. So then I became a threat because I wasn't a part of their it's us against the white man, and especially when they realized that one of the people that assisted me in I was shadowing was a non-African person. And funny enough, I reached out to African brothers on the job to shadow, and they never returned my call. They never showed interest. A non-African actually approached me when I was doing something else. We were talking, and the person said, you would be really great at it. And I said, thank you. And I asked, would you be willing for me to shadow? And they're like, of course. And that non-African person arranged for me to shadow other colleagues in the position I was interested in. So when I went through the hiring process and I got in, all of a sudden my African brothers were like, oh yeah, come. And I'm thinking, where were you to help me? You weren't there because did not see that a woman had a place in that role. I was the first woman of African descent to be placed in that zone. They had some other quote unquote sisters that they wanted in, but for some reason they couldn't get in. And I guess they didn't want me to get in because the ones that they wanted to handpick to get in weren't passing. So when I got in, because I wasn't handpicked by them, they were like, uh-oh. So all of a sudden now let's have a kumbaya. And they realized I was not signing up for the me against the white man narrative. And they wanted this all black crew. And I'm like, first of all, I don't identify as black because my father always told me I'm not a crayon color. So when they saw that I was not participating in it, they had to find a way to get rid of me. So they start questioning my reports, trying to say my reports were this. And every time they were trying, I always had backings. I always had evidence. I always had my superiors to show that I did follow protocol. So then I realized there was a witch hunt going through my reports to find errors, to find a fault, because now I was the talked one. Everybody was talking about my work ethic, and they couldn't take credit. To them, a white man was taking credit for bringing me in. It's not them. So they weren't liking it. And I was like, that was not a white man or a brown man. It was a man of character that saw that I had potential and encouraged it. And again, that was after I reached out to my quote unquote brothers, my black brothers, because they identify as a crayon color. So when I reached out to my black brothers, they never responded. They never gave me a time of day. I called, I text, no response. And not looking for it, as I said, this non-African colleague walked up to me out of the blue, like just zero it in. And it's like, I liked your energy, and was just talking like, what do you do? And yeah, the rest is history. And as a result of them not being able to take credit for my entry, they were on the attack. And and as a result of that time, my ex-husband now knew of what was happening, and he heard about the difficulties. So he's like, yes, allies. They don't like her. So it was very easy for him to find them. And then I found out that they were part of the whole training. I saw pictures of them, and I saw the whole crew. They were a crew. And I was like, oh, it was all connecting. It was all connecting. So when the trainees would come into my zone after coming through my husband's training class, and they would now meet me, I even went, one of the reasons of my whole name change was to separate. And my ex-husband did everything to still connect me to him, even when I did a name change and heard that I did a name change to separate. He did everything to say, oh, you know her? Yeah, she was named this. Yeah, that's my ex-wife. And then defame me, and then talk about my mental health. And so I would hear about me through new hirees that heard about me through my husband. And they said, yeah, he said that he was talking about it openly in training class with other colleagues, and nobody wrote him up. Nobody pulled him aside and told him it was inappropriate. And he was promoted twice. And I was suspended for not going along with my brother's plan of framing a coworker. So they found another person to do their dirty work. And because the whole thing is to get rid of me, to put a blemish on my record, to find something. So they were successful because the environment allowed them to be successful. When I hear about someone sent me a clip south of the border of the Republican House now, their investigating committee going after Joe Biden, and they said that whistleblowers came in and said at the very top of Washington, the field office is corrupt. The very, very top of my company was corrupt. And all the heads of all the departments, HR, occupational health, human resource, like all of the places I went to, they're all corrupt. It was ridiculous. So it's either you go along to get along, you turn a blind eye, but if you're a person of character, your ass is grass. Let's put it that way. So they had to get rid of me because they realized that I wasn't going along with their plan. And then they realized that I saw the corruption when I saw that they wanted me to lie and change my report to fit an agenda they had against a subordinate. And they were using the subordinate's addiction as a weapon, not, and again, that's something that's a violation. To go after someone's addiction, and you know that they have an addiction, and to find a way to weaponize that against them and not allowing them to get the help, or if you know that they need help, or if you know there's a pattern, instead of giving resources, you're using that as a weapon. Calling up before the person's shift to send the person to their zone so that they can weaponize and do what they wanted to do to get rid of this person because of their addiction. Many of them had addiction because, again, they have family stressors, work stressors. And my superiors knew of their addiction because of, when they're supposed to go through the resources and they go through resources, it is known, but that's supposed to be confidential, but they weaponize it. And they have the ability to call in before the person's shift and send them to certain zones. And if they have an axe to grind, they're going to keep having these people sent to their zones because they want to get rid of them. So they go against, and they use people's addictions against them. It's very They believe that they're doing it from the goodness of their heart because they believe they're purging the company of addicts and people that have issues because it's more to manage, and they weren't managing from a place and a space of true authentic leadership. They wanted to get rid of those that they felt required too much work, too much effort. And also too, they were trying to attain a record, and these people they felt were holding them back from the record they were trying to create, to again want to create a name for their clique that they were having there, their black clique that they were having there. And about we all gotta watch it, we gotta watch each other's back because it's only us that we have. Like the culture that they were creating for the blacks, and I put it in quotations, the quote unquote blacks, they were creating this black dynasty in that zone, and it's toxic. It's toxic because as soon as you don't toe the line, they're out for you. So one minute they're your brother, and the next minute they're your enemy. If you don't go along with their narratives and what they want you to do. So, again, when I speak to women in corporate, and I tell them, I know, trust me. And again, that's just the tip of my experiences there. So personally and professionally, I know toxic environments. Personally and professionally, I know about narcissism, abuse of power, abuse of influence. Trust me, listen. So that's the backdrop of this Instagram live, because the narcissistic ex-husband decided to bring our nanny, which is wife number 3 now, but our nanny, to our family court, that he applied to bring me in. And he applied because of, again, his finagling in the back, his stirring the pot between the children and I. When there's a parental conflict, it's always not being a parent to support, but a parent to mix the drama. So the children knew that, oh yeah, if I say that to him, yeah, he's going to be on my side. And my house is a house of structure. It's a house of high standards. My children see me living a life, not just talking a life, but living a life of integrity, never sacrificing my integrity for any growth, and always putting them before me. Any immature, childish needs or wants became second and third. They were first. Selfishness had no place being a parent, being a guardian, being a mother. It's a different environment. Myself and I first, and be comfortable, do whatever makes you happy. It's not a big deal. Like, that's over there. And as a result, again, the nanny was a very clear indicator that over there is whatever, do whatever makes you happy. So you're going to hear a little bit more about the nanny and how she's now wife number 3. And she decided to brave herself after 11 years of no contact, or not wanting to have contact with me. All of a sudden steps into the ring of my family court application to take one of my children away. So let me tell you something about these two. The Most High is not asleep. And I tell my mothers and my women this. You would see a delay, and sometimes you might see an instant justification and an instant vindication. And sometimes the vindication is very delayed, because there's certain disgusting acts. There's certain betrayal acts. There's certain actions that has to be delayed, because the Most High is fixing the bus ass that is in store for the people that do some vileness. Listen, it has to be well fixed. So be prepared that it would, and it might take a long time, but trust and believe. Just like fine wine that takes a long time to age, when that bottle pops open and you taste to see that it's good, you're like, yeah, now I appreciate why it took so long. Let me tell you, the fixing that's coming for these two, and then the agenda for her now to step into my ex-husband application to take my child as a result of his meddling and intentionally positioning himself to exacerbate a parent-child conflict of me putting my foot down on things that should have your foot put down when you're dealing with young men, and especially of African descent here in these streets of Toronto. And you're going to position yourself to have certain disrespectful, dishonorable, dangerous character deficiencies behavior. You want to celebrate those and make my home, oh, that's too hard over there, and she's this, and exaggerate things. And let me tell you, all to take my child from a good, nurturing environment that's shaping him to be a good man. And now the nanny's going to step in to show support to take my child. The children that she was sponsored into this country to have protected, and she placed one of them in danger to be rushed to the hospital because her and my husband decides to do what they were doing, and my child had to be rushed to the hospital, and their stories couldn't match. Now you're stepping in to take my child. Listen, the fixing that's fixing for her, because she put herself in it. It takes two hands to clap, yes. And boy, did she ever put herself into this hand clapping between my husband, my ex-husband, because at that time we were married, and continually to be the hand that's clapping his. Listen, women and mothers, when I tell you I got you, and I understand your walk, I understand your feeling of betrayal, and I also can show you how to be on the other side of really smiling, because you know, trust me, you know, no dirty act is going to be forgotten. And no amount of fake repentance. And there's a way to know when someone is authentic in their repentance and when someone's pretending. And yes, the Most High has given us the ability to assess and to make judgment. For the church that has gone corrupt and rogue, that make people feel like judging and making a judgment statement is wrong. No. The book tells you exactly. You're not making a judgment and you are speaking the truth of what is promised to occur. And you're also using wisdom to be able to read the word and apply it to your present situation. You're asking for knowledge so you can know how to rightly apply that wisdom. And then you're standing under understanding the timing of the application, understanding the why things happen, understanding the why it's not happening yet, understanding the who, what, when, where, and why, and how. When those three come into play, you have all permission to make a judgment. When it says judge not, yes, ye be judged, that's why you do your mirror work. So once you've already judged yourself and you've done your mirror work, there is no judgment, because that's the part that people overlook. So nobody wants to throw the first stone, or he without sin cast the first stone. And they like to use that to blanket sin and disgustingness and allow it to fester more into the body of Christ. That's why the body is toxic and has disease, because of all these cliches that men and women of character deficiencies in pulpits as prostitutes and pimps are handing out information, handing out dissertations, handing out pastoral enlightenment, handing out sermons. Those the Most High isn't dead. The Most High isn't blind. The Most High isn't fooled. Wisdom, understanding, and knowledge are not fooled. So you have authority to make a judgment statement. You have authority to judge the fruit and know exactly what tree it is. So, without further ado, let's get into mirror work conversations. The season of mirror work definitely has begun. I'm here, and I'm going to show up every week. And let's just have a mirror work conversation, being totally honest about how we show up and how we can get there. All right. And I'm just here just to share with you my journeys through it all. All right. The season of mirror work begins. So I appreciate you. Okay. This is Lady O. Stay in action with faith and possibility. Walk in and protect your light. Your purpose will find you. Say what you mean and live like you mean what you say.